Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am your co host, Jocelyn Turner. So lovely. It's a beautiful evening here in rainy Northeast Florida. We're super excited to have our distinguished guest amongst us tonight. I'm so excited to have the opportunity to meet them and talk to them and learn what their platform is moving forward as they aspire to be the next school board members here in Duval County, Jacksonville, Florida. Of course, I can't do this alone. Joining me is my co-host, Dr. Rogers Kane. How are you doing this evening, Dr. Kane?
I am doing great. I hope everyone
Weather.
fared the weather fared the weather well and in good shape. So, uh, I much appreciate, as I was expressing earlier, to the astute guests we have. I much appreciate their willingness and commitment to join us to discuss a topic matter very important to many parents. I happen to be a parent that's too old for school-age children, but not grandchildren. So I have a great concern for what's going on in the public school system. So without holding anything up, thank you guys for agreeing to join us.
Yeah, Dr. Kane, I shared with Dr. Kane earlier, Dr. Ebri and Hank, that I don't have any children, but I sure care about the school system and who's involved with it. And I just want to put it out there right now and say thank you, because people don't understand the sacrifice one makes when you decide to run for public office. It's like your all other parts of your life just goes on hold, if you will, or takes a back seat. So thank you for the sacrifice, your family for and friends for allowing you to pursue your dream. So Hank says that he is having some technology issues. He's going to come back in. But without further ado, let me hear about Dr. Nadine Ebree. Did I say your name right, Dr. Ebree, or did I botch it up?
Yeah, close enough. It's Dr. Ebree.
Ebree, that's right. I knew that. Why did I mess that up?
It's
Welcome, welcome.
For a change.
Yeah, that's okay. As my mom says, it's not your name. So whenever she messes up somebody's name, she goes, "Well, it's not my name. I'm learning." So, but yeah. So my name is Dr. Ebree. I am the mother of a daughter who's in Duval County Public Schools. I taught in Duval County Public Schools for over 10 years. Everything from kindergarten all the way to eighth grade. I also served as a technology specialist for our district, really working to like close those equity gaps to ensure that all students were getting access to the technologies that can push them forward and that could prepare them for the future. And then now I work for one of the largest ed tech companies in the world as a global education community manager. And so now I work with teachers, districts, nonprofits, everyone really from all around the world, just showing them how they can use innovative practices to make education really engaging for kids. So why did I decide to run? Why did I decide to kind of, in a way, put my life on hold to run for office? So I decided to run because I became extremely concerned. I think Dr. Rogers mentioned it earlier. Like I just became really concerned about the state of our educational system. At one point, I would see two people running. You would see a Democrat who loved the kids fighting against or running against a Republican who loved the students. And it's like, let the best man win, right? But now we're not seeing that. We're seeing extremists running in every single race. I saw it 2 years ago and was so discouraged when an insurrectionist, somebody who was at the January 6th riots, won the election because our community did not vote. And to see them sit on our board was discouraging for me. And now to see this happening where we have 4 more people in 4 different races running, trying to get a supermajority, not a Republican supermajority, but an extremist supermajority on our board, it made me want to fight even harder. And so this isn't a normal school board race. And I just want the community to know that this is a race where we're either going to see our schools being lifted up the next 4 years or completely torn to shreds, depending on if the community votes or not.
I'm glad you said
call it a
what you
race
did.
for life.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
I'm glad what you say what you did, and we'll get back to that. I want to give Hank Rogers a chance to come on, and hope you were able to get your technology issues out of the way. It's probably raining like the weather outside, right? But welcome. Please introduce yourself and tell our audience why you decided to run for the school board.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ms. Turner and Dr. Kane, for, of course, having us tonight. I am Hank Rogers. I am running for School Board District 5, which covers historic east side or out east all the way to the west side of Jacksonville, 103rd and Old Middleburg Road, which encompasses Riverside, Avondale, Ortega as well. I am not a native of Jacksonville, but I have been in Jacksonville over 25 years. I actually came to Jacksonville to attend college here at the University of North Florida, where I was indeed honored to serve as the student body president and one of the trustees members there. It was during my time at the University of North Florida. I came to Jacksonville really to study secondary education and be an educator. It was during my time, had an amazing experience with my field of study at West Jacksonville Elementary School under the leadership of the late Dr. Sylvia Johnson in the 3rd grade class. I knew that my passion was with children. I have always served children, and so I wanted to make sure that I gave back in a way that was given to me when I was growing up, and that's through the educational system. But I found a challenge when they moved me from West Jacksonville Elementary to what is now called Charger Academy, where a teacher no longer had the passion to be in a classroom, and that changed my whole view on education. I went back to the campus, asked that they remove me from that class and put me in another class. The university refused to do that. After several pleas, I then turned around and decided, you know what, I'll move myself. And in moving myself, I moved into political science. So I do have a bachelor's degree in political science, a master's degree in public administration. Immediately after graduating, I had a choice to go back home to Miami, from which I come, or to stay here in Jacksonville. The same position opened up in Jacksonville and in Miami, and that was a legislative assistant in the Florida House of Representatives to a member. I took the job here with a member, and Dr. Kane knows her well, Audrey Gibson, and that's how I first came acquainted with Dr. Kane at the time and the work he has done in our community. And so I worked for her for many years, along with Mia Jones and other representatives. But it was, as I tell people, it was Senate Bill 6 that changed me yet again, and that was to Senate Bill 6 took away teacher tenure in the state of Florida. And teachers union from all over came advocating for that bill, asked me or challenged me to go into subbing for 2 months. And I took on that challenge after the legislative session ended to do that. Why am I running? I'm running because I truly believe every student deserves a high quality education that you and I desire for them to have. That's the same thing that I had when I was growing up. We had caring teachers, we had caring adults in our classrooms, making sure that we moved on to what I now call our next. And so I'm honored to be on this journey with Dr. Ebrey, along with many other great candidates who are running to ensure that there is, as she eloquently, succinctly, and clearly articulated, there is not a takeover of our school district. I ran for this position 8 years ago, and I was not successful 8 years ago. But I find it to be the most appropriate time to run again and serve our community in this capacity, making sure that we serve all students, regardless of zip code, regardless of the side of tracks in which they live on, but making sure that we're serving with excellence in every school.
So, Miss Ebert, both of you guys, I'm old. So I have to ask questions while they're still on my mind, while they're still up front. Miss Embry, what district are you running
Sorry. Yeah, so I'm running for District 1. And so think both sides of the Danes Point Bridge. So this includes everything from like Ocean Way down to like Heckscher, then going over the bridge into like San Mateo, Arlington, just think all the way down Atlantic, Fort Caroline. So these districts are really big because there's 14 city council districts, but only 7 school board districts. And so there's 2 city council districts within each school board district. So my city council districts are 1 and 2, but my school board district is District 1.
And Mr. Ebert, can you tell us and I guess I'm not very as familiar with
Rogers.
your school board district.
Mr. Rogers, you said
Mr. Rogers. What did I say, Mr. Ebert? Sorry about that. I told you I was old. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, your district, if you equate it to the school board districts, what were they again? I mean, to the city council district, what are they?
Sure, it is District 7, which is represented by Councilman Jimmy Peluso, and District 9, that is represented by Councilwoman Tyrona Clark Murray at this current time.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So you guys are in 2 separate districts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
I just want to run it for 2 separate districts.
Or this call will be extremely awkward.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I want to make sure I'm understood. That's the only reason I went into it. Okay. All right. Ms. Turner, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So Dr. Embry, you talked about, and I'm glad you mentioned that about the insurrectionists, because we got that out the way, right? So what's your vision for our school district moving forward? You're elected. Just what would you like to accomplish?
All right. So in a perfect world, so I have a bright, bold vision, but things that I know I can accomplish, because in every situation or with whatever job I'm in, like I shift the atmosphere. So in regards to school board, one of the first things that I think is super important just in my job, I work with districts all around the world. However, I see in Duval, we are not where we need to be, especially with STEM. And so I will say the statistic all the time until, my lips fall off. STEM is super important and should be in every single classroom. Students should not have to go to a magnet school to receive STEM skills. We are in a time where STEM is so important. Research shows that by the year 2030, that sounds like it's far away, less than 6 years from now, over 67% of jobs are going to require STEM skills. However, if we go inside classrooms, students are not getting STEM. Many of them are getting drill and kill instruction for reading, which drill and kill instruction, that means it's like they're trying to hammer reading into them. Like, oh, you guys are struggling with reading. Let's go ahead and give you a whole bunch of books, a whole bunch of worksheets, and y'all are going to do this all day. Kids don't like that, right? So we need to ensure that students are getting science, technology, engineering, mathematics, STEM inside schools so that they can be ready for the workforce. People always talk about, oh, kids need to be ready for the future, but a lot of them don't even know what they're talking about because they don't know what the future holds. And so I know, and when I said that comment, I'm referring to my opponent and a lot of other people who say, oh, they need the basics. We need the basics. We need to get back to the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic, so that kids can be successful in the future. If the only thing they get is reading, writing, and arithmetic, they are not going to be prepared for the future, and they are going to fail in the future. We are not preparing them for the same future that they were walking into. We are preparing them for a future that doesn't exist yet, especially with the major advances in technology. All right, so I'm going to say that. Students need access to STEM and innovative technologies, and also quality educational experiences. And so one of the things that I'll push, in addition to pushing for policies, ensuring equitable access to STEM so that they're not just getting great education on certain sides of town and gifted programs and at the beaches, and in certain sides of town, they're just getting drill and kill instruction. But in addition to those policies, I want to ensure that students they feel safe and heard. So being able to listen to the students, the teachers, so that we can start fixing the problems that exist rather than sweeping them under the rug, which is happening a lot in our district. And then also ensuring that we're being transparent, creating ways where the community can get involved in the policymaking process, whether it's through virtual forums, whether it's through Zoom calls, whether it's through going into communities and holding these sessions where we can involve the community in the policymaking process. A lot of the community, they have no clue how policies are made or how they can be involved. As a matter of fact, many of the community members don't even know who their school board member is. And so like being able to bridge that gap between businesses, parents, and the community, and students and teachers, everybody, and start bringing everybody to the table. Doesn't matter what their political affiliation is or anything, bringing everybody to the table. And then finally, ensuring that there's transparency. So recently, we have to restore trust in our board because a lot of people don't trust the board and the members of the board because of the things that have happened in recent years and the people who have made it to the board in recent years. And so being able to create processes that restore that transparency in the board, whether it's through transparency in the decisions that we make in regards to the policies or in regards to the budgets, so that everything that we're doing is being out in the open. We're not covering things up, but the community is able to see what's happening so that they can restore that trust and also feel like they have a seat at the table.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. And Mr. Rogers, what about you? What is your vision for the future of our school board?
Yeah, I'm with Dr. Ebrey as it relates to ensuring that we have STEM programs in our building. But I'm also laser focused on ensuring that our neighborhood schools exist and making sure that we're fighting for our neighborhood schools at the end of the day. As you all are aware, we have 30 schools that are up possibly for closure all across the county. And so we have to ensure that we have our neighborhood schools in order to provide good programming, to provide STEM programming into our schools. And so we have to take a hardcore look at the offerings. There should not be a conversation, and Dr. Ebrey and I have been on many tours together now, but there should not be conversations where we're talking about closing A-rated schools, right?
Mhm.
And we're having those type of conversations where we're looking at closing A-rated schools. We have a budget shortfall of 1.4 billion over the next several years that we have to address, so we have to get that down. We have a new superintendent that just came on board. And so Duval County has a lot of challenges. And so it would be my goal, one, to try to deal with the school closures. I served for 2.5 years as the chair of the oversight committee. And I always say thank you. Thank you for going out and voting for the half-cent sales tax. With your tax dollars, that has generated close to over $400 million. Right. And so we have to keep the promise made to the voters. And that was to make sure that we're building new schools, renovating new schools and spaces. That's what voters went out and voted for. And so I want to make sure that we keep that promise. We see the success right now with many schools. You look at Rutledge H. Pearson, they have a brand new school up. You take a look at Highlands Estates now Academy. They have a new school coming up this month. Ribbon cutting is happening this week. Same thing with Chaffee Trail Middle School. They have a ribbon cutting coming up next week as well. And so we want to make sure that we keep those type of things going in our schools because we're in competition now. We're in competition with charter schools. We're in competition now with our private schools. So we have to make sure that we are providing excellent programming services throughout the county. But we have to do that, one, in ensuring that we're marketing our schools better. I talked a lot about marketing, making sure that we're marketing our schools much better now, because gone are the days where the neighborhood schools were the number one choice. It is not. And so we have to make sure that we are telling the story of what's happening in the building, telling the story of awesome programming that we have. Dr. Ebrey was there at Kirby Smith, but now is Springfield Middle. And so they had an amazing program that she started there. Students want to run to that program. And so we have to duplicate that success at other schools as well. And so
Now
we have to make sure
that program was a public school program.
Mm-hmm.
it is. And so amazing program. Still, even as she departed at school, it still sees success. And so how do we replicate that throughout the county? And so we have to make sure that we invest in amazing programs like that throughout the county, making sure that we have the best and the brightest teachers in front of our students each and every day, and not that we have substitutes in front of them. Nothing wrong with subs. I was a sub, so I understand it. But making sure that they have quality instruction in front of them. I'm big on mental health, right? A lot of our students come to school with trauma, and so we have to deal with the trauma that they face. We can't teach them if they have some mental issues and mental things going on. So we have to make sure we're providing wraparound services, not just to the student, but to their parents as well, and making sure that they're getting all that they have. Because if we don't deal with that, it's going to be hard for the teachers to really deal with that in the classroom. And so,
I like the only thing I'm gonna correct you on what you said. Oh, I feel of course, is that it's difficult to teach them, not can't teach them, but difficult to teach them if they're coming in with some health, some other health, mental health issues. Not that you can't, because I don't want anybody to equate ADD, ADHD, and being on the spectrum with people that can't be taught.
and
You
I
can
agree with you
decide
guys.
how many people will skew that statement.
Yeah, and I thank you for clarifying that, Dr. Kane, because that's exactly what I meant. It's not that we can't teach them, but it's a challenge to teach them if they come with a lot of trauma.
Figured as much.
And so we definitely want to make sure that we're addressing their trauma, we're addressing their issues, so it makes the process easier in the classroom for our educators. And so that's why I'm running.
Okay.
That's
So,
why I'm running. Yes, sir.
yeah, Ms. Turner, did you have anything you want? Because I was going to ask Ms. Every about the STEM as well.
Go ahead.
And what my concerns are, when the Northeast Florida Medical Society, just FYI for you two guys, we're Black physicians in Duval County, part of the Black physicians in the state, and then of course Black physicians in the nation. Part of our concern has been the differentiation of public versus charter schools, in which it appears in this. I mean, we talked about STEM for the past 20 years. Our organization did. We sponsored scholarships to try to get the, STEM scholarships, yada, 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 the whole 9 years. But one of our biggest concerns have been that charter schools are taking all this money away from the public schools to be able to educate our kids. Okay. Now, granted, my kids are old now. They don't think they're old, but I do. But my kids are old right now. Granted, while they may be that I mean that I'm not having very young kids, I have great concerns about all the monies that charter schools seem to be taking away from public schools. And I know you guys are not in the legislature because they're part of what doing that. But how do we go out about trying to bring kids back into the public school system to increase our funding back into the public school system, for which the charter schools have taken away a lot of our funding for public school system? Does that make any sense?
It does. And I want to be clear. There is a concern, and I know this question is for Dr. Ebri, and I'm going to let Dr. Ebri elaborate.
No,
But
go.
there is, without question, a concerted effort in the state of Florida and throughout the nation to eradicate public education as we know it. We see it, right? And so session after session, and me being in Tallahassee for over 10 years, I've seen it when I was in Tallahassee. When you have a charter school, and Dr. Kane, you see this, when you have a charter school that is built right in front of a traditional public school or next door to a traditional public school, our families unfortunately want to go to the new and shiny thing, right? It's like buying a car. You either want to stay in your used vehicle or you want to go to the new one, right? You're going to go to the new vehicle, and that's what we're seeing. I served, and as I stated to you, I served as the chair of the House of Sales Tax. And when Dr. Green, along with the board, went for that tax, charter schools were not included in that. And what wound up happening? It was held up by members of city council until a charter school provision was added to it. And what do we see now? They're receiving 17% of the half-cent sales tax dollars. Not only that, but they also turned around when I was the chair, sent Dr. Green along with the board a letter. The Department of Education sent a letter stating that we did the formula wrong, so we need to give them more dollars. Here's the reality, Dr. Kane, right in front of your facility.
You done your homework. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So right in front of your medical facility, IDEA is built. Right behind your facility, we have Henry F. Kite right behind there, right?
Actually, in front of it. But go ahead. I can look out my front window and look at Henry L. Kite. The parents park in my parking lot all the time. And then I can pick up a rock, and because I got a bad shoulder, throw it twice into the front door of that charter school, whatever the name of it is.
IDEA. And so we have IDEA on one side. We closed down a traditional public school. We put a program in there. So we have Bridge to Success program in there currently, but it's no longer an elementary school. And now we have IDEA. Here's my issue. And here's what we found out several months ago when I asked the question. IDEA is receiving close to $500,000, and they just opened yesterday, right?
Yesterday.
Why is that? Why is that? Because no track record, but they're receiving all these dollars. Why is that? Because the legislature just passed this law saying if you have a sister school in another part of the state, you can receive these dollars. Whereas we have schools in our community that's struggling and need the dollars more. So to your point, Dr. Kane, we have to work with the legislature in order to address those type of issues. And they're only going to happen when we turn this Tallahassee around. We have some work to do in Tallahassee in order for us to fix that problem. But we see the challenges that's happening. And our charter schools got to be transparent about where the money's going. And many of our charter schools are...
question. And but I'm not going to try to hog up the conversation. But that'd be a whole nother question but definitely needs to be addressed. I understand the limitations of what you guys can do because a lot of it is in the legislature has to do certain things on their behalf. But at least making the public aware of the fight that you two are up against in terms of trying to achieve the best outcome for our students. Now, I will be prejudiced by saying the best outcome for our African American students. I mean, look at me. What do you think? Look where I work at. What do you think? You expect me to hear. You expect to hear African American because I am concerned about our community. I'm concerned about all communities with one way or the other. But in particular, the communities that I live in, that I serve, mainly, communities that I serve needs some qualified, competent, willing leaders like yourself to go out and take on the task of doing the right thing by way of the school board. For those, because as Ms. Turner stated so eloquently earlier, you guys are giving up a lot of your personal life, well-being, whatever. You're giving up a lot of that just to run for this position. Not once you get it, what you're going to do, not just that, but just to run for it is a monumental sacrifice that you guys are making.
Dr. Ebrey, did you want to, Ebrey, tell me again how to pronounce your name? Ebrey.
It's Ebrey, and it's okay.
Dr. Ebrey, did you want to respond to that? Otherwise, I have another question for you.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with Hank, and I just want to make it clear that this isn't like by chance or anything like this. This is an intentional effort to dismantle, to disrupt, to destroy our public school system, to give kids choice. And that's what they're saying, to give kids choice. But really, what they're trying to do is dismantle our public school system. They're trying to make, they're not when I say they, I mean the state. They're not trying to give kids equal access, giving kids choice. They're trying to purposely make public schools the worst choice by taking out resources, stripping everything that they need so that they're pushed into either the private sector or the charter schools so that they could try to privatize education, which is why you could see all of their pushes and things with Project 2025 to get rid of the Department of Education, things like that. And so this is very intentional. And so, yes, I agree with Hank. So our best way to fight back is by really strengthening our public school system. And so they are being very strategic with it. If they can get the right school board members in to pass whatever policies, they can say whatever now, but really they have no intention on strengthening the public school system. They are puppets. They are the arms and legs of our governor and other extremist political groups here, and their prime focus is to dismantle and destroy our public school system, to push kids away and to fulfill whatever plans he has for them. And so I just wanted to make that clear so that people don't think, oh, why is the state doing this? Like, this is very intentional. These are intentional efforts.
So how do you define a successful school district, and what metrics would you use to measure success? Again, I'll repeat it. How do you define a successful school district, and what metrics would you use to measure success?
Right. And so in regards to a successful school district, it's a district where parents are happy. And what are the things that parents typically ask for or want when they send their child to school? So when I send my daughter to school, I want to know that she's safe. I want to know that she's not getting made fun of. She's not getting bullied. So not just physically safe, psychologically safe. We always talk about physical safety, but we don't talk about the psychological safety that kids need to have when they're entering to a school. And so I need to know that she is safe. I need to know that she is learning. I don't want her to be safe and in a class where she's not learning at all. And I want to make sure, and I want to also ensure that she's in a class with a teacher who truly loves and cares about her. And my daughter is 5, and she's been going through daycare and stuff for a little bit now, ever since she was born practically. And last year was the first year that I had all 3. And so I want to make sure that every parent is able to send their child to a district where their child feels safe, where there's no bullying happening in the schools, where we're addressing these behavior issues, where kids are learning, and not just learning, but they're learning in an environment where the methods and everything that we're using are innovative, are up to date, are not ancient and archaic. We still use methods from the 1900s. And so ensuring that students are able to go into the school system and they're able to have all that. And when they do, we'll be able to hear it. And so I know we talk about quantitative data, but qualitative data is the most important for me. When I hear parents talk about, oh my gosh, my child, they were being bullied before, but now they're in a safe environment. Oh, my child, they used to be pushing Fs and now they're A student. When you start hearing stories like that, then your district is now successful. And you could also look at different data. I know sometimes people talk about FSA scores and stuff like that. I'm not a big fan of standardized tests. There's more to education than that, because some of these kids pass all these standardized tests and then they can't find a job. And so there's different ways to measure success. And so another way we can measure success is by looking at the students. Right now, in the past 4 years, we had over 10,000 students leave our district to choose alternative options like the private schools or homeschools or charter schools. And so another way to measure success is, are students staying? Are the ones that left, are they coming back? And so we could also measure success by not just qualitative, but looking at these mobility numbers, seeing if kids are no longer leaving our public school system, or if that number is going down. We're not seeing like this exponential increase that we're seeing right now.
Thank you. And how do you propose we manage our district's budget to ensure equitable resource allocation?
So one, I think it's super important to ensure in regards to the equitable resource allocation, try to do, we can try to ensure that even through policy, ensuring that there's policies, making sure that there's certain resources at every school. I went through the policy handbook, didn't see not one policy on STEM and to ensure the equitable access of STEM across the district, which we're not seeing. And so also in regards to the budget, I think it's important to look at these contracts. Um, sometimes people think districts have money and they overcharge, and sometimes people, I would like to think everybody has a good heart and they do the right thing and they have integrity, but unfortunately, that's not the case. And sometimes people sign contracts to their friends and things like that. So we need to like really look through these contracts to ensure that people aren't overcharging us, to ensure that there aren't cheaper options, because it's not about how much money your district has, is what you're using with that money. Because some of these charter schools have the same amount of money as certain public schools, and some of them are their money is going a lot further. So it's not just about the money that we have, but how it's being used, the contracts that we're allowing to go through, and really cutting back in certain areas so that we have enough money so that the money can be funneled right back into the classroom, so that teachers aren't spending money out of their pocket buying simple things like pencils.
Well, either of you guys can answer this question, but I need to know for my own benefit. When it comes down to the allocation of all the dollars the taxpayers put into the funding bucket for education, public, these days you have to say charter. I remember the days that was very much an outlier. But for our listeners, those charter schools, tell me if I'm incorrect. Charter schools, by their mere existence as the way it stands up on the Florida law, when the monies that they receive takes away from public monies. Is that true, or tell me how does that work?
Yeah,
Public schools money.
yeah. So charter schools. Let's deal with this. Charter schools receive allocate. Let me say it this way. You went out and you voted in 2020 for the half-cent sales tax. So charter schools receive those dollars, right? So they're receiving those dollars. In 2022, you went out and you voted to increase your property tax, $1 million, right? Charter schools receive those dollars. Charter schools also receive PICO dollars from the state of Florida to build new schools. That's the public education capital outlay dollars. They receive those. They also receive an allocation from Tallahassee in the budget. They receive those dollars. Now, PICO is only given to charter schools. PICO is not given to your traditional public schools. That's why many school districts now have taken the opportunity to go out and solicit, if you will, the half-cent sales tax to the voters and say, hey, we want you to give us a half-cent so that we can build new schools, things of that nature. Charter schools don't have that. So they're getting a pot of money from different sources. If you look at IDEA, which is right across again, take a look at that. In the federal budget and under the previous president, they put it in the federal budget for them to have over $200 million under Betsy DeVos in order to expand IDEA all across the country. So what do you have? You have IDEA in the state of Florida, charter school, which is a charter school. You have IDEA. We're going to have 4 here in Jacksonville. You have 1 in Arlington, in Nadine's district. You have 1 currently in District 4, which is Bassett, which is right there on Lemp Turner. You have 1 that's coming on Blandon Boulevard, and they're trying to find their 4th location here in Jacksonville. All taxpayers' dollars helping to fund that. Though that school is called, quote unquote, the School of Hope, right? We don't know who's going there. One of the questions that we ask the district all the time is, what are the students and who are going there? And the district will tell you, we don't know. They don't know the students who are attending that particular school based on the way it's outlined in state statute. That is a concern. The district should know who's attending these charter schools and know how much dollars are being taken away from the traditional public schools. What I will tell you is this. At the end of the day, we know that $8,000 is tied to a student. Around $8,000 is tied to a student. But the problem, Dr. Kane, is, and Dr. Nadine and I both understand this issue quite well. We have students who are leaving our traditional public schools each and every day, going to charter schools, but then they go and they're coming back to our public schools with no funding. The funding is left at the charter schools, was leaving our district in a bind and in a hole. And so we have to work again with our leaders in Tallahassee to address that issue, because that's where we're seeing the budget shortfall. And so we and we have
So
some
essentially what
concerns.
you're saying is that the student may have, I mean, the IDEA, not IKEA, IKEA, don't
Yes.
but the IDEA type schools, the school is getting monies even in years where there has been a reduction in their students' enrollment.
But that's
They
because
give
it's when the
public funding.
schools,
Is
isn't
that
that
right?
because, Hank, isn't that because it's when the school starts, how many students are enrolled at the school at the beginning of the year? But if the student leaves mid-year, that funding is already there. It doesn't
That is
move.
correct.
It doesn't
But
move.
what about
the
before
student until the
mid-year?
next year.
What about before mid-year? Suppose they enroll and then
It doesn't
change.
matter. It's with the student at the beginning of the school
At
year.
student-
However many,
the day of
whatever the
enrollment.
student population is at the beginning of the year, that's how much money that they get. Before I know we're on budget, but I'd like to talk a little bit about, and Dr. Ebrey, you talked about Ebrey. I'm going to get it right. Dr. Ebrey, you talked about it a little bit. And Hank, I'd like you to also chime in on it. And that is, what's your current stance on the current curriculum? And do you have any specific changes you would like to implement? And is that even possible?
Well,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry,
Amy.
Hank, you can go.
No, please.
Okay, so in regards to the current curriculum, and I think I kind of mentioned earlier, like I'm not a big fan of the way we're teaching, and it's different at every school. So I don't want to generalize and put everything under this DCPS blanket, but we need to be more innovative with how we're teaching. So as a global education community manager, I work with districts everywhere. And so when I go into, for example, I went into a district in West Palm Beach and students were learning algebra with virtual reality headsets. And these headsets, you're like immersed within a world. I used to hate algebra, even though I taught it. I used to hate algebra, but when I can imagine how much I would have loved it as a student if I had these VR headsets on. Like you go to some other schools, students have like these gaming labs where they're gaming inside school, but at the same time, learning about all the different jobs associated with gaming. And so I think that our curriculum is very limited and outdated to the past. And to put this into perspective, just here in Jacksonville, we have about 3,000 cybersecurity vacancies, and the number varies. Worldwide, we have over 3.5 million cybersecurity vacancies. Do you know why? Because our school system is not preparing students for the actual jobs that are going to exist and exist now. And so how many times do you walk into a classroom and students are learning about cybersecurity in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, even sixth grade, right? Many times they wait until kids are in high school to teach them about cybersecurity, but that's really late. They wait till they're in high school to teach them how to code, but that's really late, because now that we're in this digital world, think about it. In the past, we would go into stores to buy our clothes, to go school shopping for kids. Now, I just pull up Amazon, see, oh, what do you need, Clementine? Your teacher said you need some red folders, you need this, and I'll wait for it to come in the mail in 2 days. All of our stuff is becoming digital. And so when things become digital, guess what? That means you're going to need more jobs in this digital space, especially to protect this digital landscape. I don't think even people in the US and around the world understand what people are fighting to protect this digital landscape. We just put everything online, our bank number, everything, and we don't notice that there's people constantly trying to get at it, but it's these cybersecurity professionals who are protecting our information from getting out there. But we have a shortage in cybersecurity professionals. So put that into perspective on where we are now. So one of the things that I personally did was, and that's one of the reasons why we built the lab that Hank mentioned earlier, was to combat that, to give students early access to cybersecurity fundamentals from a young age, specifically Black and Brown students and girls, so that they are more likely to pursue this profession, so that they can so that they can go into cyber. And so in regards to the curriculum, am I a big fan of it? No, because I don't feel like our curriculum and our school system is preparing students for this highly, highly digital future that they're going to walk into. As a matter of fact, AI is something that if you go to any educational technology conference, that's the main topic. If you look at any company, Microsoft, Google, their biggest topics are artificial intelligence. Why? And I can't go a day without using it. I can't. Because they're expecting people to be more efficient. They're expecting them to do things a lot quicker. It's almost like the calculator of every single profession. And imagine that calculator being banned, right? And that's what's happening even in districts like ours, where artificial intelligence is banned and kids aren't prepared for the future. I could go on forever and ever, but to answer your question, no.
What about you?
So let me say this, and I'll be brief in my comments on this particular topic, because Doc has already said it. But here's where I stand, and I'm very clear on this. We have to protect history, and at the end of the day, what our curriculum is trying to do is erase our history. And we have to be very careful about that, and we have to make sure that regardless of what's taking place in Tallahassee, we protect and make sure our students are receiving true and accurate history in our curriculum. We have to. Our teachers are faced with right now some very challenging times where they don't know what's appropriate to teach in a classroom. When we have abandoned books, when we have when they're told you can't have this literature in your class, when they're told you can't say this about history, we have to make sure as board members, yes, we know what's happening in Tallahassee, but we protect the curriculum and our teachers here locally. And I think both me and Nadine will fight for that to ensure that that is happening each and every day in our classrooms.
I can agree with both I'm gonna just cut through the chase. CRT threatening remarks that people make as far as us protecting our history. But I also want to make sure that we understand that we also need to respect our history. We learn from history, okay? And for us to be able to compete historically in the job market, we have to, as African Americans, when I was growing up, my parents used to tell me you gotta be 250% better than the other guy. Okay. But I think part of the problem these days is that we're looking at a technological, I don't want to say revival, because it's not really reviving anything, but a technological advancement that we're not preparing our kids for. We got a whole lot of jobs that are going to be lost.
Correct.
Due to technology.
Right.
And if we're not preparing them for technology, it's just historically, if we didn't prepare our kids for what the future represented. You know, my mom, you know, she pretty much cleaned houses for a living, but that's not what she wanted me to do. She wanted me to advance in terms of whether it was technology or whatever we were capable of doing. She wanted me to advance and do more than what she did as a parent. So I think we need to start making sure, and I agree with you, Dr. Ebory and Dr. Rogers, Mr. Rogers. For Mr. Rogers, I think we should also, I'm also respecting your opinion as well. And that is, we need to start training our kids for the jobs of the future. And they're not doing that in Duval County Public Schools at this moment.
Because they're too focused on the wrong things. They're too focused on banning books, and that's the thing. That's the problem that I have with the extremist candidates who are running, because they're running to restore order and common sense values and back to the basics. And many of them have never set foot in a classroom. How are you going to restore order to a class? Teach in a classroom for 3 days and then teach a teacher how to restore order. Like, some of these people are going to make policies for a system that they don't understand, that they can't even teach in. I can set foot in any classroom and I can survive. Why? Because I've taught all types of students. And so it's one thing when you're making policies and you've never stepped foot in a classroom. It's almost like trying to like teach a parent how to parent. And so anyway, sorry, don't even get me started.
I want to talk about a little bit. We haven't talked about teachers. How do you retain and how do you support and retain high quality teachers in our district? How do you support and retain? Go ahead, Hank.
Yeah, I think for me and having, this is the first year that I have not been in building, working alongside our teachers. One of the things that we know, teachers don't go in there just for the money. It ain't no money in teaching, right? But you have to go in there for the passion and the love of the work, and they do that. And
be broke.
Say that again, Doc.
And be broke.
And be, but they do go into it for that very reason, because they're passionate about the profession. Is the teaching profession, unfortunately, where everyone feels like they can do this job. Everybody feel like they can do the teacher job, right? And so they're the ones who are not valued. And so we need to value our teachers more. We need to listen to them more. We need to make sure that they get in the professional development, that they're getting the resources that they request, that they get. That's what teachers want. When you ask teachers why they're leaving the classroom, they're not saying I'm leaving the classroom because of I'm burned out or the pay. They're saying I'm leaving because I don't feel like I'm being valued in the building. No one's listening to my concerns. No one's valuing my opinion. No one's treating me like the professional and an expert that I am. You know, if I go to the doctor, he is the expert or she is the expert in their field or in his field, and I'm going to take their advice and their expertise. Same thing with an attorney. But it's interesting that teachers are not given that same respect. They're challenged and they're questioned, and we need to bring a sense of respect back to our teachers, where they're, when I was growing up, our teachers were revered. We did look up to our teachers and our educators, and we got to get back. We got to get back to that. And I'll yield to Dr. Nadine for that as well.
Yeah, and I'm not going to take long to answer, but I agree with everything Hank said. I think the first thing we need to do is listen to them, because a lot of times people make decisions about people without even getting their perspectives, especially on the school board. So the first thing we have to do to say, teachers will tell you what they want. And as a matter of fact, many teachers said what they needed before they leave. Teachers don't just get up and walk out of a school. They usually talk to the principal. They tell people, they tell teachers. And when they reach that final straw, then they get up and leave. You talk to anybody. The thing is, teachers are talking, but nobody's listening. And so I think it's important as a school board member for me to make sure that I'm going into schools, not just for photo ops, not just to take a picture with the shovel and smile and wave and then walk out and then not know what's happening in a school, but we should be embedded within our schools, like walking the hallways, talking to the teachers, talking to the students. And you walk a school hallway enough, it's set when it's just time to take pictures, you'll be able to see kind of the culture of the school, what's happening, and it will help with policy making, because now you'll be making policies about a school that you understand, teachers and students that you understand, parents that you were able to interact with, and not just based off what you saw on Fox News. Sorry, I had to throw in some shade in there, but
yeah, you did that. And how would you engage parents? I recall years ago, and I might be truly outdating myself, but I remember when the community school was at neighborhood schools where you could take all sorts of classes. And I took a class, a sign language class, and I brought my my niece with me, and so it allowed for us to learn together, right? And I
Mhm.
remember there used to be other meaningful type after school programming for parents as well as for students. How would you, and not necessarily that you'll do that, but how would you engage parents more a part of the educational system? You know, because I hear teachers say all the time, if only we can get parents engaged with PTSA. Do either of you have any ideas of how to get more parent involvement in their students' education?
I heard somebody say you cannot expect parent involvement without parent engagement. And so sometimes schools wait until they need parents before they try to get them involved rather than keeping them engaged throughout the entire school year. For example, sometimes you won't hear anything from the school. I mean, my situation is different because my daughter's principal is amazing. Her school is amazing, and I love them. So, this is not my case, but this is what I've seen in a lot of schools: is they don't reach out to the parents. They don't get them engaged, and then when it's time to get signatures for something, or if they need something, or if they're like, "Oh, we need parents to attend this specific
Yeah,
thing," and the parents don't come, they wonder why. But you have to keep them engaged throughout the year so that they can be involved. You have to make them feel welcome. You have to pay attention to who's sitting in the front office. Sometimes you can walk into a front office and feel like, dang, I don't even feel welcome. It doesn't even feel like they even want me here. And some parents had bad educational experiences. Some of them had bad experiences throughout school, and they're already apprehensive about even entering into a school building. And imagine being greeted with an attitude at the front door. And I understand that sometimes people in the front have to deal with a lot, but you have to keep in mind that these are parents. And some of them are already at their wits' end with the school. And so we can't just call a parent when a child is in trouble and expect them to be involved now. We one of my principals actually had us do phone calls home, and I used to hate it at first during my first year teaching. That afterwards I understood why he had us call all the parents during the first week of school, even though it took a lot of time, was to kind of build that engagement, build that rapport and relationship, so that the first call home wouldn't be, hey, Bobby just threw a chair through the window. So
yeah.
that they hear from the teacher at first and they get them engaged.
Thank you. What about you, Hank? And I've seen you around parents through some of your extracurricular work that you do. How would you engage, or I'll use that, Dr. Ebri, how would you engage parents or get them involved in their students' education?
I think one of the things that we have done, and especially with my work with the Amistad Foundation, is ensure that we listen to the parents and kind of hear some of the ideas that they want implemented. And so that's kind of been our secret sauce, right? So when parents tell us, hey, we don't want to come to the school for a parent meeting, but take it outside of the building, we have seen success in that. We have seen parents show up because sometimes the school, just as she indicated, can be intimidating to some of the parents. So moving those activities outside, but engaging them and having fun activities with their child. Here's what we know: we know parents show up if their child is performing, if their child is doing something that um, football games, you name it. We know
Yeah.
parents will show up to that. And so incorporate in those type of activities with our parents to make sure that they're engaged, and throw in educational nuggets, if you will. And that's what we have done. So we'll do a performance, we'll do step show, we'll do something to get the parents there. But then at the end of the day, we also giving them some takeaways to help their student be successful in the schools. um, we always do for us, we always do giveaways. We always find a way of making sure that they leave with something to entice our parents to be more engaged. But we work as a partnership, right? We work as a partnership to ensure that they may not want to call the school, but they'll call me, they'll call our office, they'll say, hey, how can we, because they're not intimidated, because we have built those relationships. And so I think um, all of those things help ensure that our parents stay engaged in their child's success.
So I have two more questions to ask you, but we're beyond the 7:30 mark. So if you just bear with me while I ask these two very important questions, and it to me it leaves something on the mind of folks when they're making a decision to vote for you or not, right? And so that is two questions, and I'll ask them together and I'll repeat them, and you can answer it in whatever way you want, in whatever order you want. First question is, what sets you apart from the other candidates running for the school board? And second, how can the community stay informed and involved in your plans and initiatives if you are elected? So I'll start with what sets you apart from the other candidates running for the school board? And I'll start with you, Dr. Ebrey.
Yes, absolutely. And I love this question because it's super easy. So, one, my opponent taught art for 6 years at Jackson before he taught art for 6 years at Jackson and then quit in the early 90s. And so he really believes in using archaic methods to teach. Like he's like, back to the basics. All we need is reading, writing, and arithmetic in schools. You heard before, I advocate for, of course, students need to know how to read, write, and do math, but there's so much more for them to be prepared for the future. That may have been enough for him in the future he went into. That's not enough for the future that our kids are going into, especially with the technological advances. So my opponent also doesn't really have a lot of experience, as you can see. I taught for over 10 years. I worked for one of the biggest tech companies in the entire world. Actually, last year, I was awarded as one of the top 20 to watch globally by ITSE, the International Society for Technology and Education, which are the standards that we use all around the world, including here in Florida for technology. And I was one of the top 20 in the world to watch. And so it's being able to bring in those global perspectives and to see what other countries and districts are doing and bringing that innovation to our school district. I'm not scared of innovation. And so, and also, I'm not controlled by politicians or political groups. Everything that I do, I say I'm about the kids, and for the community. And my actions have shown that. It has shown as a teacher. When I was a teacher, it has shown me as a parent, me as a technology specialist for our district, and also me as a global technology specialist working with districts around the world. But being somebody who's really focused on innovation and pushing for change and not trying to bring us back 30 years to the good old days for him, which weren't the good old days for us.
And so, thank you. And how can the community stay informed and involved in your plans and initiatives if you are elected?
Yes. And so one of the things to ensure that I'm elected first, and I'll get to the other question after. But one thing that I want to really stress is that is to please support the candidates. Like right now, the extremist candidates who we're talking about, they have a lot of financial support. They are getting funding from the state, from the governor, getting funneled into their campaign, just like they did 2 years ago. And so please support us financially if you can. Just share information online. And so we have to get voted into office first. And so another thing that's super important is that possibly all 4 elections will be determined during the primary. 3 for sure, absolutely, because there's only only 2 candidates in 3 of the races, except for Hanks. He has 3 candidates, so it could possibly go on to the general election. So a lot of times people don't vote during the primary. They say, oh, I'll just wait for the general, and less than 20% of people actually vote during the primary election. But that's when our seats get determined. In 2 weeks, I'll know if I'm the next school board member or not. However, in 2 weeks, sometimes people don't even know that election is even coming up in 2 weeks. So that's pretty concerning for me. And so those are two important points that I really want to hit first. And so in regards to when I'm in the seat, how do they stay connected? So you can stay connected with me now. I'll be using the same page on Facebook and even the same email even afterwards. So please feel free to reach out to me via email. Like anybody can tell you when they reach out to me via Messenger on Facebook. Like I respond to everyone and I'm very responsive. So feel free to reach out, and you won't even have to reach out because I plan on creating programs and systems and forums so that the community can easily be engaged. So they're not having to Google my email trying to find me.
Thank you, Dr. Ebrey. And we'll make sure that you put in your information for folks to donate to your campaign. And great point that, tomorrow is early election. And so people don't have to wait until election day. They can start voting for you, both of you right now. So
Mhm.
Hank, your turn. What sets you apart from the other candidates running for the school board since you are running against two other folks?
Yeah, for me, it's clear. At the end of the day, I have always shown up. Again, I stated I ran for this position 8 years ago, and I was not successful 8 years ago. But I have always been laser focused on one thing, and that's making sure that the welfare of our students and our families was at the forefront. And I always say, regardless of who sat in the superintendent seat, I have held their feet to the fire. And I hope that if given the opportunity, the voters of District 5 will hold my feet to the fire. Uh, Unlike my opponents who have run for other positions over and over and over again, I have stayed consistent. That's the children. And whether people know me to be on the SAC, come to community meetings, show up when there's been issues at their child's school, I've been there. And that's what people know me for being there, showing up, advocating and fighting for our children. And I haven't stopped doing it. I've been doing this for over 15 years, and I won't stop. Many people asked me after that election 8 years ago to run for other positions. I knew what my ministry was. My ministry was not to run for city council. My ministry was not to run for a Florida House of Representatives seat. My ministry has always been making sure that our children are well. And that's what distinguishes me. I think oftentimes right now, unfortunately, my opponents are looking just for a seat. They're just looking to get elected somewhere because they have run since 2019 to present. And so they can't get on city council, then now let's try school board. Can't get on school board, let's figure out the next seat that I can seek. That should not be the case for our school board. Our school board is facing some challenging times, and we need leaders like Nadine and I and Sarah who really understand these challenges and who will meet the challenges of tomorrow for our students who are passionate about this work, not looking for the next election. And unfortunately, that's what we have in my race. They're looking for a next election and the next seat. I'm not. I'm looking to do right by children that I have, as I have always done. Um, Again, I'm no stranger to this. I have worked with every school board member who have sat in this seat. Wendell Holmes, Dr. Wendell Holmes, when I ran 8 years ago, gave me his endorsement. Jimmy Johnson gave me his endorsement. Betty Burney gave me her endorsement. Dr. Connie Hall gave me her endorsement. Betty Burney gave me her endorsement. Warren Jones has given me his endorsement. Everyone who has sat in the seat at District 5, past and present, has given me their endorsement. And many former school board members in other districts, along with former superintendents, have given me their endorsement because they have seen my work and they have seen me in action. They know I'm going to do right by children. They know I'm not going to be bought by anyone. And that's what distinguished with me from them. People have seen me in action.
So thank you, how can the community stay informed and involved in your plans and initiatives if you are elected?
Sure. So I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to have office hours throughout the district at different schools so that they can be a part of that. I'll have an email address to be accessible. I'll have the Facebook account still available. It'll switch from, I guess, elect Hank Rogers to Hank Rogers, the school board member, things of that nature, so that they can continue to reach out. On all of my literature, my telephone number is on there, so they'll still have that phone number to use to reach out to me as well. So all of those means will still be in place along with other things that we come up with to be accessible.
Thank you. This running for a school board position is very complex, as our educational system is very complex. So we probably didn't talk about everything that you wanted to talk about tonight, but we certainly would like to give you both an opportunity, if Dr. Kane doesn't have any other questions, for you to just share your final thoughts on your candidacy for school board. And of course, don't forget to mention how folks can donate to your campaigns. So I'll start with you, Dr. Ebrey.
Yeah, so I know I gave a lot of thoughts today, but I just want to just close by saying one, thank y'all for having us on. It's so important to just bring awareness to what's happening in our school board. Sometimes school board elections get overlooked. However, these are the elections that impact our students. It impacts our kids, our some of us, our grandkids. And I don't think sometimes we don't necessarily understand the gravity of how important these elections are. So thank you for allowing us on so that we can just talk about this. And so please vote. Please vote. Early voting starts tomorrow. You can get out and vote early. You can look at the elections website to see the list of early voting websites. So please get out and vote. Uh, Personally, the candidates who I think are the best without being biased are, of course, myself, Hank Rogers, Sarah Manion, and also Cindy Pearson are amazing candidates. And most likely you will see one of them on your ballot. So
Thank you. And to reach you or to donate to your campaign, vote.
yeah,
No, what
yeah.
is it? Can you put it back
So
up?
www.votenadineebry.org. So just vote my first and last name.org.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Ebrey. Hank, Mr. Rogers, I just been dying to say that. Mr. Rogers, what are your final thoughts, and how do people, I see votehankrogers.com. What are your final thoughts regarding tonight, and anything you didn't get a chance to mention regarding your candidacy for school board?
No, I just want to thank you, Ms. Turner, for this invitation. Thank Dr. Kane for this opportunity of having us on to talk about this very important topic, because at the end of the day, this is going to really shape education in Duval County. 4 seats up, Dr. Ebrey has already eloquently stated those seats that's up for grabs. And so we need everyone to get out and vote for public education champions. And in every school board district race, you have one. She outlined those in District 1, 3, 5, and 7. And we hope that you will get out and vote for one of them to ensure that we maintain our school district and we help move our school district forward. Not what we're seeing happen in Tallahassee with the governor's picks, but to ensure that we have individuals who truly do care about public education and who truly do care about our kids. And on August 20th, I think that we can, um, as I always say, send Tallahassee a clear message that our school board will not be bought. And so, but we're going to do right by children and their families each and every day. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts regarding tonight? I know you say you're too old, you don't have any children in the school system, but we both, although albeit senior citizens, we still care about the local school system. So what are your final thoughts regarding tonight's topic? And you're muted.
Not too old, just old. I can I'm just as happy as I can be that these two individuals are not running against each other. Okay, I think they are a very good. What's the word I'm looking for? I think collectively they are very good for the school board. And as Dr. Ebrey mentioned earlier about the other the other candidates, I think that that we should definitely give them a good look and make a decision about as to whether or not we want them to join the future of our kids. I do believe that teachers have always been our future, because without teachers, none of us would be where we are today. I don't care who you are, somebody taught you something. And so if you're a teacher, I really praise you guys as to what you have done to educate me and my kids and my family and so on and so on. Most teachers, back up, because I got a few of them that they were a problem. But most teachers, I am very happy with what they've done. Real quick, that's pretty much it. I'm looking at some notes that I've taken, and I am just so happy that we found these candidates. We went out looking for them. They stood out. Everybody kept talking about them, telling us these are the guys that you need to talk to. And so I encourage our listeners to please join their efforts by supporting their campaign, contribute to their causes. I know everybody's asking for people for monies, but there's nothing more important than our kids, because they are our future, but even more so, they are the future that we want represented in terms of what our legacy will be, and that is to have brought forth those individuals, people who can lead society in the best mode possible. So thank you, both of you guys, for being teachers. Thank you both for what your contributions have been. I wish most success to both of you, and I will do everything I can to get you both elected.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. So tonight we hope that you heard a lot from our candidates, and we tried to cover a range of topics to give you a comprehensive understanding of each of their platforms, views, and plans. And you heard their priorities, you heard their strategies, but more importantly, you heard their commitment to improving the education system. And they were so unselfish. They didn't just say vote for Hank and Nadine Ebri. They said also consider Cindy Pearson and Sarah Mannion as two other folks who are just as passionate as them. Don't wait until election day. Take advantage of early voting starting tomorrow here in Duval County. Please, please, please vote, or rather support their campaigns. If you cannot afford to donate money, then put their names and their faces. You can Google both of them, as I did, and put their campaign photos on your social media platforms, and tell your circle of influence to vote for Dr. Ebri and Hank Rogers and Cindy Pearson and Sarah Mannion. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Pause for the Truth. Tune in next week as we bring to you another important topic for you and your family. Thank you, Dr. Ebri, and also thank you, Hank, and have a successful campaign. Good evening.
Thank you. Bye.